Good morning, Night City!
The eagerly awaited Cyberpunk 2.0 update is officially here, and it brings with it a massive overhaul of nearly every underlying system and mechanic in the game, and I can't wait to sink into it, which we'll be starting together, live on stream over on the Purple platform today, so see you there. I will of course be on PC, cranked out on the ray tracing mode they literally call Psycho, but what you're looking at here is the console version. I wanted to plop in on this version for a little bit, because in addition to the game mechanics, 2.0 also does things to the performance and the graphics. Freed as they are now from having to support the last gen consoles, for whom the 1.6 update, which dropped almost exactly a year ago, was the final patch for those last gen consoles. And specifically for consoles, the 2.0 patch notes say they changed the target upscaling resolution on Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 in performance mode from dynamic 4K to dynamic 1800p for improved performance and image quality. And that is literally all they have to say about console-specific changes, which to be honest is rather less than I'd hoped for my console peasant pals. But let's have a quick little side-by-side and see if it's a visually important difference, or if it's just purely about stabilizing the 60 FPS performance mode, which until now has been, well, less than nailed at 60 FPS a lot of the time. Hello again, I am Blunty, and if you do find this video useful or interesting, please leave a comment, absolutely do a thumb, and maybe consider thinking about whether that bell button needs to be donged next to the subscribe button. Now, how about a little context first? When Cyberpunk 2077 first launched on the 10th of December 2020, performance, especially on the consoles, was notoriously janky, infamously janky, one might say, and CDPR knew it, which is why they didn't hand out a single review code for anything except the PC version, and withheld media access to the console version entirely without even so much as a supervised play session until launch day itself, when consumers had already spent their money. It was a very, very large red flag. And ever since then, we've all been on the lookout for exactly the same kind of behavior from every major dev releasing a game. So thank you for that awareness, at least CDPR. Skip forward 432 days, or just over 14 months, and patch 1.5 brought with it their so-called next generation update, which, while continuing to fix the many issues with the game, and in my opinion still didn't make it worth a second playthrough for me, I'd have to wait till patch 1.6 for that. But the 1.5 patch and its so-called next-gen updates were designed to allow Cyberpunk 2077 to take advantage of the additional power of the Xbox Series X, S, and PlayStation 5 hardware, improving both performance, stability, resolution, and load times. And most interestingly, it brought with it a choice of graphics modes. A new performance mode finally unleashing 60 FPS gameplay on PS5 for the first time. Xbox already had a mode for that. But what neither had until this point was ray tracing mode, taking advantage of the ray tracing accelerating hardware in the newer consoles, but at the cost, of course, of nailing you back down to 30 FPS. And of course, none of this, in any mode, was actually 4K at all. All of the modes on both consoles used dynamic scaling to output to 4K. And most disappointingly, while it's exciting to hear ray tracing, because of the visual and immersion enhancements it can bring, on console, when CDPR say ray tracing for this game, the only thing they're talking about is ray traced local shadows. No ray traced reflections, no ray traced sun shadows, no ray traced lighting, nothing was ray traced except local shadows. Hardly a dramatic or meaningful visual change, as you can see. If these weren't labelled, could you even tell? But for the privilege of these locally ray-traced shadows, it did tank performance down to 30 FPS and also dropped the dynamic resolution scaling to a locked 1440p, which presumably is still the case for ray tracing mode, even in 2.0, because again, the only console-specific patch note we have calls out the non-ray tracing performance mode specifically, as moving from its dynamic 4K scale to a dynamic 1800p. Presumably offering extra overhead to smooth out the existing frame rate drops that mode used to have. So, you tell me, can you see the difference between the scaled 4K on patch 1.6 and the 1800p on 2.0? I was recording all this sitting right in front of my 27-inch 4K gaming monitor, and yeah, in-game I don't know if I could tell the difference at a glance. Nothing really stuck out to me. The game looks nice, but honestly, it all kind of looks rougher than it should to me because I have many hours playing on PC at higher settings. But most console gamers don't play within arm's reach of a 4K gaming monitor sitting on their desk. Most, of course, play on TV sets, sitting comfortably on a couch or something at a much further distance. And from there, yeah, I think the difference is, for any practical purpose, invisible. And while the old performance mode could drop as low as 50 FPS, my tests here are kind of quick and dirty and without a frame count or any of that kind of fancy stuff. I'm betting Digital Foundry will probably have a typically dry but technically interesting breakdown here and tell us what's changed as far as that goes, but experientially, the way it feels, well, it feels about the same to me. I mean, to be fair, on Xbox Series X, frame drops were already reasonably few and far between on 1.5 and 1.6. PlayStation 5 users had it a bit worse on that score. And while frame-by-framing through my recordings and my editor shows patch 2.0 still doesn't quite nail to 60 FPS at all times, it is damn near most times. And frankly, for this game, that is good enough. When I was optimizing this thing for the ROG Ally handheld gaming PC, I found sort of 45 FPS was the minimum sweet spot I wanted to hit. Anything below that, and it just felt worse. But anything between 45 and 60 felt pretty damn good with this game. So the Xbox Series X dropping to, maybe 55 or maybe 50 FPS also, still not really a big deal in my mind. I think the takeaway here is, if you're on the current gen consoles and have been looking forward to either finally playing this game or finally returning to it at the beckoning of 2.0 and the DLC we'll get in 5 more days, it all seems pretty damn good on first blush to me. Sadly, you don't get any extra ray tracing tricks. It's still just local shadows at the expense of halving your frame rate and scaling up from a lower resolution still. So I would advise to stick with the performance mode if you're on consoles. The 60 FPS is far more impactful to the feel of the gameplay than, slightly better shadows on local objects, looking a bit more natural. Not really a difficult choice between those two options in my mind. But yeah, again, obviously I'm staying on PC, and depending on when you get to this video, I might very well be testing out 2.0 on PC with a brand new save file and exploring the new rejiggered game over on twitch.tv/bluntnate. So I'll see you there. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this has been interesting. Thank you as always to the patrons scrolling up above there. I am Blunty, and I'll catch you next time.
I love